In this chapter, we're beginning chapter 17. We're going to be looking exclusively at quadratic functions. Now, you guys have a little bit of experience with quadratic functions already because we learned how to factor this trinomial 2 chapters ago. And you'll remember, hopefully, that when we factor this, it's like we're unfoiling it, right, going backwards. And so we're going to break it up into the two pieces. And we know that we have to have x's in front, because the x times the x has to give me the x squared. And now I'm looking for two numbers that multiply to give me this 3 and add to give me the 4. And most of you will see right off that it's x plus 3 and x plus 1. Now from that point, since I have two things that multiply together to give me 0, one of those two has to equal 0. So either x plus 3 equals 0 or x plus 1 equals 0. We solve each of those and we get x equals negative 3 and x equals negative 1. Now most of you are saying, yeah, I remember that. This is nothing new. Well, that is correct. What we'll be looking at in this chapter is, well, what if it's not in this format, right? What if we have something that looks like this? Looks like x squared is equal to 9, right? This doesn't have both the x squared term and the x term. You notice this had two different types of x terms, right? The x squared and the x. This one only has an x squared term. Now the nice thing is, when there's only one type of x term, we can just solve it normally. We can do the opposite, rearrange it, right? Now, what's the opposite of squared? The opposite of squared is to take the square root. And so to solve this one right here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the square root of both sides. Because when I take the square root of x squared, then I'm left with x. And when I take the square root of 9, I'm left with 3. But not only 3, but positive or negative 3. So we say plus or minus 3. Now that means the same thing as writing x equals negative 3 and x equals 3. Either of these are acceptable. But any time you take the square root of a variable, you should get a plus or minus. Okay? So let's make a note of that. Any square root of a variable will be plus or minus, positive or negative. Okay? So that's the type of thing that we're going to be looking at as we go through this section. Let's look at another example problem. And this one is going to be 5m squared minus 32 is equal to 8. Okay, now you'll notice again that this problem has one type of m variable, right? And so I don't want to do this. I don't want to factor, because I do that when I have the 2. Okay, the x squared and the x. This one only has a squared. And so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to get that m squared by itself. Okay, because I know if I get it by itself, I can do what I did in this second problem here and just square root it. So I'm going to go ahead and add the 32 to both sides, which will leave me with 5m squared equals 40, right? And then I'm going to divide both sides by 5. And so I've got m squared is equal to 8. And then, of course, I've got the squared, so how do I get rid of that squared? I got to do the opposite, which is the square root. That's right. So we're going to take the square root of both sides. I'm going to do it in a different color so you can tell what my new step was. The square root of m squared will be m. The square root of 8, we actually need to simplify. You'll remember this from last chapter. 8 is 4 times 2, and 4 is 2 times 2, so I have my pair of 2's. That'll come out, and then left inside the square root is the number that I didn't use, the square root of 2. And so that will be my final answer. Now I'm going to take a break here and set up the next video, but go on. If you need to watch this again because you're not sure of how to answer these, go ahead. Otherwise, go on to the second video.